You didn't wake up today feeling like a failure. Something made you feel that way. And if you trace it back, really trace it, it almost always leads to the same place. Someone else's life. On a screen. That you were shown on purpose. Think about the last time you scrolled through social media and felt genuinely good about your own life. Not inspired, not motivated. Actually good. Most people can't find that moment, and the longer you scroll, the harder it gets to remember why. There is a part of your brain that has been running the same calculation for 200,000 years. It scans your environment, looks at the people around you, and asks one question. How am I doing relative to them? This isn't vanity. This was survival. In small tribes, your position relative to others determined whether you ate, whether you mated, whether you were protected or abandoned. Social comparison wasn't a character flaw. It was a biological instrument as essential as hunger or fear. The people who paid attention to where they stood in the group lived longer. That instinct got passed down. It lives in you right now. The problem is that instinct was built for a world of roughly 150 people. Your tribe, your village, the humans you could actually see, touch, compete with, and measure yourself against in real time. A world where the most successful person you'd ever encounter was maybe the chief, or the best hunter, or the woman 3 huts down who seemed to have everything together. That world is gone, and the mechanism that scanned it never got the update. What you have now is an instrument designed for 150 people being fed information about 8 billion. And every single day, that instrument is being used against you with surgical precision. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger proposed social comparison theory. The idea that humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions and abilities by comparing themselves to others. His original insight was relatively neutral. Comparison, he argued, isn't inherently destructive. We compare upward to aspire and downward to feel gratitude. The direction matters. What Festinger couldn't have imagined is what happens when the comparison pool is infinite, algorithmically curated, and designed by engineers whose job is to maximize the time you spend inside it. Because here's what the platforms figured out early. Negative emotion drives engagement. Not happiness, not satisfaction. Anxiety, envy, inadequacy. Those are the emotions that make you keep scrolling. A person who feels good closes the app. A person who feels slightly worse about themselves keeps looking, searching for something they can't quite name. The algorithm knows this. It was optimized for exactly this response. Every feed you open has been constructed to show you a highlight reel of the most aspirational version of people you know, people you follow, and people the system thinks will destabilize you just enough to stay. The beautiful apartment, the body, the relationship, the career move, the trip. None of it is false, exactly. It's just relentlessly, deliberately incomplete. Here's what that does to your brain over time. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that reducing social media use to 30 minutes per day led to significant reductions in loneliness and depression after just 3 weeks. But more revealing than the reduction is what caused the damage in the first place. The participants weren't comparing themselves to strangers. They were comparing themselves to people they knew, friends, classmates, former colleagues, which activates a much older and more visceral form of social threat. When you see a stranger succeed, your brain can dismiss it. When you see someone from your same starting point, same city, same school, same age, pull ahead of you, something different happens. The gap feels like evidence. Evidence that you chose wrong, moved too slow, wasted time. That the problem isn't circumstances. The problem is you. Psychologists call this relative deprivation. It's not about what you have or don't have in absolute terms. It's about the gap between where you are and where you believe you should be based on who you're watching. And social media has turned relative deprivation from an occasional emotional experience into a permanent background noise that runs underneath everything. You wake up and it's already there. Before you've made a single decision, before your first cup of coffee, the comparison machine is running. Someone is further ahead. Someone is doing the thing you said you were going to do. Someone is living the version of your life you told yourself was coming. And here is the part that makes this genuinely dangerous. Chronic exposure to upward social comparison doesn't just make you feel bad in the moment. Over time, it restructures how you see yourself. Researchers studying what's called social identity threat found that sustained comparison to idealized others gradually erodes what psychologists call self-concept clarity, your ability to have a stable, coherent sense of who you are. In other words, the longer you spend measuring yourself against a shifting, curated, infinite gallery of other people's best moments, the less certain you become about your own. Your identity stops being something you construct from the inside and starts being something you measure from the outside. And once that shift happens, no achievement feels like enough, because there is always someone else to reset the baseline. This is why people who appear to have everything still feel behind, not because they're ungrateful, because the mechanism doesn't stop when you succeed. It just finds a new comparison point, a higher reel, a more aspirational feed. The goalpost isn't a place, it's a moving target engineered to stay just out of reach. So what do you actually do with this? The first thing is to understand that this is not a willpower problem. You are not weak for feeling this way. You are a human being running ancient social software inside an environment specifically engineered to exploit it. Recognizing that distinction matters, not to excuse the pattern, but to stop blaming the wrong variable. The second is to curate with intention, not impulse. Every account you follow is a data point you're feeding into a comparison engine inside your own mind. This doesn't mean only follow people who make you feel good. It means ask, honestly, whether what you're consuming is making you more of who you want to be or less certain of who you already are. Those are different things, and the difference is worth paying attention to. The third is to interrupt the automatic nature of it. The most damaging comparisons happen when you're not paying attention. The passive scroll, the half-conscious check, the reflexive open and close that leaves a residue you can't quite identify. Build friction. Make the behavior conscious, because once you see the mechanism, it becomes much harder for it to operate in the dark. Leon Festinger said we compare ourselves to others because we're trying to understand who we are. That's still true, but the question worth sitting with is this: who built the mirror you're using? Because if someone else designed it, optimized it, and profits every time you look, then what you see in it might not be a reflection of your life. It might be a product.